Okay, y'all, so for today's video, I really want to do my birth story. You've all been asking for a long time, and since Elijah came early, I also didn't have like a intro into his existence quite yet, and I didn't want to wait this long because I wanted to start doing my version of vlogmas. So today's vlogmas episode is going to be that. Elijah was born on the 10th of last month. I wasn't due until the 21st of this month, so technically he should even now still be inside of my tummy. He came 2 days before my birthday, so I was right. And even now, I was like, I think he's gonna be discharging on the 7th, and I was right about that too, but he won't be going home until tomorrow. But everything kind of got set into motion today, so I am just on a roll with being in sync with him. Let me take you back to the week he was born. So we had a 3D ultrasound planned for the 6th of that week. Sorry, my days are all kind of scrambled now. For the 6th, and that was just gonna be a fun little activity, just kind of get some pictures of his face to hang up and all that good stuff. We got in, she was like, oh, did anyone tell you you should be resting? I was like, oh, well, yeah, well, I'm pregnant. And she was like, no, like, you shouldn't be doing anything because he looks like this. And she turned the camera, or the screen, and he was head down, so low, his chin's like to his chest. He was like in full laboring position, just sleeping. Like, she was like, he is legitimately resting up for his big day. And I was like really taken aback because I was 33 weeks. I was just about to cross the threshold into 34 like 3 days later. So I was like really shocked and anxious at that point because I was like worried about what was going on with him. Obviously, this is my first baby, so I didn't know like all the ins and outs of like the anatomy at this time. A little bit around like midnight of that night, I started feeling very, very light cramping, and I was like, So I just drank some water, had a snack, because I had a scare before where I thought I was having contractions, but I was just dehydrated. So I drank a lot of water, had a snack, kind of tried to like replenish my body, and then I just went to bed. Then I woke up the next day and I was doing things around the house, started feeling it again. So at this point it was Monday, so I texted my mom and I was like, I'm having these like weird feelings, not really sure what to think of it, kind of don't want to go to the hospital because I was kind of like embarrassed going last time thinking I was in labor, and honestly kind of let down, even though it would have been a lot worse off at that time. So I was like, okay, I'll just write it out, and they were like bearable. Wasn't anything that was getting more intense or anything that was like showing signs that it was labor. If anything, we both thought it was like prodromal labor, which is like false labor. You kind of have some of the same symptoms, but nothing is like progressing. So I kind of wrote it off as that. They were very, very mild. It felt just like, it was very low around like where my ovaries were at. It felt literally like period cramps, but like super, super, super light ones. Like not even regular ones I would have before. So I wasn't concerned at all. Wednesday, when I'm crossing the 34-week threshold, and I noticed they got a little bit stronger, and I was kind of like, owie, whenever they happened. But still, because it like had taken so long to get to that point, I was still not convinced that it was labor. So we were still in like the whole prodromal labor scenario, kind of wrote it off, kept trying to like drink a lot of fluids. I did like walking, my normal like mild exercise, whatever. And then that night of Wednesday, it was terrible. Like all of a sudden around like 8:30, I would say it was like 12 hour. It was like the first time was like 48 hours, then it got a little more intense. This time was like 12 hours, it got more intense. And at this point I was literally like, I was starting to kind of cringe whenever they would happen, and so I was starting to get a little bit sus of what was actually going on inside of my body. Instead of him moving periodically all day, it was like very much not there if I didn't have a contraction, and then when I did, it was like rhythmic at that point whenever the contractions started picking up. Because after that 12-hour mark where they got to the point where I was cringing, then it was like I literally cannot sleep. I had gotten like a bouncy ball, I guess you could say, that night, because I was kind of like irritated. I'm not the person where pain gets to like really makes me upset to the point of like this is painful and I'm crying. It's like I'm irritated and I'm getting upset because this just isn't stopping. So I had Riley take me to Target. We got the bouncy ball and I was like, you know what, if this is what you want to do, we're just gonna do it. So I was bouncing, and then when the contractions would start, I was then just like rotating my hips on the ball. That's just what I read you should do to kind of help baby move down. Even though I'd already been told 4 days prior at that ultrasound that he was engaged, like fully in my pelvis. So woohoo. So I was just kind of doing my thing, and then I went to bed, but it was really like 4 hours. I was actually like probably total I slept. It was terrible. So the next day, Riley, I think he went to work. Yeah, he went to work. I was literally laying in bed like cringing every time it would happen. I got up to like walk. It was worse. I like would stand still. It was really bad. So I was like laying on my side. It was kind of better. That was the only thing that position I get in that was bearable. So then I got in the shower and they stopped completely. So I was like, okay, maybe this is how I can like stop this, because obviously I knew it was an ideal time to go into labor. So I was literally, Riley came home because I was like, okay, we're gonna need to go to the hospital. And so he came home at his lunchtime and I was just standing in the shower for literally like an hour because it actually stopped, and it was the only like peace I could get, because I had been tracking these the whole 4 days, but at that point they were literally like 5 to 7 minutes apart. So it was pretty like just no leeway my body was giving me unless I was in the shower. So I stood there for like an hour. I told myself I wasn't gonna be those people that like shaved out of like insecurity when I was going into labor, but unfortunately I could not keep that promise to myself. So I did. I shaved, which is nothing wrong with that. I just thought that, you know, I just didn't want to care because of how many like people who deliver babies see. I just didn't want to care, but I did. So I did that because I could actually like move around and be comfortable in the shower, and then I got out and they almost immediately started again. Like it was probably like, I'd say like 30 minutes I got to like get dressed, and I was kind of like still good, and then they started again. So I went to the kitchen to like get a drink because I was trying to like calm myself down because I was just anxious about hearing any answer. Now it was like I didn't necessarily want to hear that I was in labor, and I didn't want to hear that I wasn't. It was this weird like in-between point. So I went to the kitchen, got my water. Riley and I were like getting ready to walk out of the door, like he was telling me like, come on, if we're gonna go do this. So I was walking back to the room and my water broke. So after my water broke, I like texted my mom. I was like, okay, I think my water just broke. I went to the bedroom. I told Riley, okay, I think we gotta go. So we went to the hospital by our house, and they had me do like a urine sample, and then they did like a speculum test, which is kind of like a pap smear if you don't know, but it's like with 6 of the little swabs instead of just the 1, and they're all looking for different things and all at different levels, if you get what I'm saying. So I was doing that. Riley was like sitting in the chair looking at me like this was also affecting him physically. Like he was like noticeably uncomfortable. And then so they were texting like see if they could find amniotic fluid to confirm my water broke. Then she checked my cervix, and I was 100% effaced and 3.5 centimeters dilated. So she was like, don't even need the results of that test, we're doing this. And then she came back like 30 minutes later. She's like, I got it, your water did break, but not that that's a shocker or anything. So they can't take NICU babies at my hospital. They had to be 36 weeks or more, and Elijah's 34, so he transferred us to this hospital that we're in now. At this point I was waiting for like the ambulance to come. Riley drove my car, he went home, handled the dogs, because we kind of left not really expecting, you know, anything really. For some reason I was like irrationally worried that Riley was like gonna miss the labor just because I never went into labor before. So at the time I was like really worried about like how fast it's gonna move, whatever. So I ended up having to go on Pitocin because it just kind of, not that things weren't progressing, but Elijah still had a good amount of like my water, kind of like how they explained to me, like he was wearing it like a hat, like it had like a little hole punctured, and that's what I felt leaking, but it wasn't like the whole thing, and like we're really getting this going. So they put me on Pitocin to hopefully help that progress. I was on that for maybe about 2 to 3 hours, and the only thing that was really happening was like my contractions were definitely getting worse, but the bag was still there, so they had to manually break my water, which wasn't as bad as I expected. I was really nervous about that. Once he broke my water, I kid you not, I had 20 seconds of the best relief of my life. Like, I literally thanked him. Like, I don't know what you did, but thank you. And then horrible soul-crushing contractions started, like literally right after that. Like, there's that 20 seconds and then it was terrible. So now we were in like the transition period, or going into it, because I was like 5.5 when he decided to break my water. And then after that, after breaking my water, I went from 5.5 to 6.5, and then I was at 7. And then she checked my cervix. She was like, yeah, we're at 7, you know, transition starting now. Like, this is gonna be where it kind of gets real, like pain wise. And it definitely did. I was like, I didn't even know how to explain it. I felt like I was growling. Like, I was just like moaning in pain, like through them, because I really wanted to do my first labor natural, and I knew I could do it, because it just, you know, it's all like a mental game of like, you know, the pain is really bad, but this is leading to something and eventually it'll be over. So that was kind of like my mindset. This wasn't forever, and then after this I'd have my baby and all that good stuff. And so when my transition started, I was literally in transition for like 30 minutes. I went from 7 to 9.5 so quick. And then yeah, everybody came in. Obviously the NICU nurses came in, they got all that stuff situated, and I got to push in, and I pushed for 55 minutes, they said. I was happy about that. My biggest fear in labor was pushing for a really long time, because I knew myself, and I knew like that would be where I got really energy depleted, and I did, girl. I was like, I knocked my IV out while I was pushing, so I didn't have Pitocin coming in anymore unknowingly. So whenever I had a contraction, I'd have a good, like, I don't know, what would you say, babe, like 5 to 10 minutes?
What?
In between like my contractions and I was pushing, like I'd have a good like 5 to 10 minutes of like rest. I had like
2 minutes.
Yeah, I'd have, okay, so it felt a lot longer apparently to me. The relief was really good. But I had like 2 minutes of like a break, and I literally could feel myself like falling asleep. So I was so grateful at the end that I didn't have a long pushing session, because that 55 minutes like already pushed me to my limit. Like, I was ready to just check out. I was done. The baby's staying, I guess. He was laying on my chest. It was a good times. I literally didn't even know, like, my brain could not even register that it was my baby on me. Like, I was looking at him, and Riley had called my parents. They were on FaceTime, which was super nice and comforting, until my dad was like yelling to push harder, and I was like, someone who's never gonna have to do this is telling me to push harder. Someone who's never gonna have to feel this pain. And so that kind of irritated me. But my mom muted herself. She read my mind, so it was very nice. But yeah, so finally got him out, and I was just kind of looking at him, and then I looked at my parents, and I was like, someone's baby was just on me, because obviously he didn't get to like stay like normal, because he was only having 30% oxygen in his body. So they kind of just did that for me to see him, and then they took him, and Riley went with him, because that was something I really wanted, was like someone to always be with him, parental wise. So I went with him, and I just kind of got my parents, and I was like, did you see that? Like, someone's kid was on me. I was so out of it. And Riley came back because he just said it was kind of too much being back here alone, and like seeing them do all the things they're doing with like Elijah, and just, you know, trying to stabilize him, which I could have never watched that either. I would have left. I was very happy with all my nurses. My labor and delivery nurse was freaking fantastic. I literally will remember her for the rest of my life, and compare every single, well, I'm not gonna say every single, probably gonna do one more baby and be done, if not one and done. So I will just compare the next one, if any, to her. Her name was Radiance. Yep, Radiance was the best. And it was so good. Anyway, I like literally couldn't have done natural labor without her. Like, she was just so attentive, and even when I tried to go to the bathroom, she would like hold me and like rock me while I was going through contraction. It was the best ever. She was, I think like that's the secret to doing a natural labor, like, is having a really good team, and a team that makes you feel comfortable. Because even my doctor, like, I don't necessarily like having male doctors, but Dr. Rodriguez, who delivered Elijah, even made me feel like really safe and secure, and like I said, like, this was gonna be over and done with, and it wasn't anything to, you know, freak out about. He like told me what was happening while Elijah was making his way out, and that was really helpful because I feel like a lot of people probably feel this way, but like when they're pushing, it feels like you're literally getting nowhere at all, and it's also a lot of pressure and just really uncomfortable. It was more pressure than pain. I thought it was gonna be pain, but it was just pressure. It just been like, yeah, like I wasn't moving him at all, which I guess I really wasn't, because he kind of got like stuck a little bit. He was kind of doing this instead of doing this, so that was a whole thing to work through. But yeah, my labor and delivery team was amazing, and I couldn't have asked for better. And I'm very happy with that, because I really wanted this first labor to be just really peaceful, and also just kind of establishing a really good feelings towards labor, because I know myself, and I knew that if Elijah's labor was like more on the traumatic end, I wouldn't do it again. And I do want to have that option, you know, mentally, of having a second baby if we wanted to. So I was very happy with how everything played out. Obviously Riley was amazing. I knew that, never second guessed that. I knew I was going to be good partner wise, and I'm very grateful for that, because there's a lot of people who did not have good delivery partners, just being a shitty man, I guess. But I didn't have to worry about that, and I knew that, so I knew that was all going to be very good vibes, felt very safe, obviously. And I knew in the event that I didn't have a good, like, you know, I had a snarky nurse, whatever, that Riley would like advocate for me and remember that I didn't want epidural. I wanted to wait a few minutes after Elijah was born for them to cut his placenta too. I wanted to kind of get like that extra blood into his body, because he didn't know it has a lot of like stem cells and just benefits of than just cutting the cord immediately. After that, we were in our postpartum room. I like learned how to pump with my nurse, kind of did all that good stuff, and then we came down here and I saw Elijah for the first time, and it was the best thing ever. At the time he was hooked up to like a CPAP machine, so there wasn't really a lot of like him that I could see too terribly much, other than holding him, but he was just the tiniest thing. And yeah, ever since then I don't know, I've just never felt more whole and complete happiness and just contentment with life. Having him and Riley is just, I'm set, I'm good. Catch you up to now, we're on our last 24 hours hopefully of him being in the NICU. He's just got to do this part and not have any changes to like the minimal amount of oxygen he's on, and he can go home tomorrow. So wanted to get this video done and up for you guys, because a lot of people have been asking. But yeah, I did a natural birth. I didn't use any like pain meds either. They offered me like fentanyl and I think something else, I can't remember. Oh, well, duh, well, yeah, but they offered me epidural, but there was something else that she was like, oh, well, oh, she was saying, like, well, it was, like, mild, that I could try, like, regular, schmegular pain medicine that you'd use, like, day to day, and I was like, I don't think it's gonna do anything for me, girl. Like, I know she's trying to be helpful, but that was something that I just didn't indulge in at all. I just kind of wanted to give Elijah just, like, a clean slate, a fresh entrance into the world, so I didn't use anything like that, so I can't really speak to that either. And I didn't do any different laboring positions. That was another question I got, unfortunately. I wanted to, but when the time came, I was just on my back. So don't really recommend it. I think it did make it harder, but you know, hopefully you just speak up more at the time. But for me, when it was time to push, I was just ready to push, because I had been fighting it to get to that dilation period, and I didn't know that you can't push until you get to a certain dilation, and you will feel like you need to really, really bad, and you'll feel your body doing it, and it's, yeah, so yeah, that was all that happened during my labor and delivery. Thank you guys for watching this video, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.